Once upon a time, in a quiet village where the winds carried tales from one ear to another, there lived a young girl named Nara. Her face was as radiant as the morning sun, and her heart, they said, was softer than ripe mango flesh. The villagers adored her, not just for her beauty, but for the way she carried kindness like a lantern, lighting the path for everyone around her. Nara's father was a weary farmer who worked the hardened soil with cracked hands and hopeful prayers. Her mother, a lively market woman, sold beads and firewood with a toothy smile, often humming gospel songs as she braided Nara's hair by moonlight. Even though life was hard, their home was filled with laughter. Love, not wealth, was their treasure. At school, Nara was a star. She answered questions that left others scratching their heads. Her notebooks were as neat as her soul. Every week, the head teacher would say with pride, "Nara, you're going to change this world." She would bow slightly and whisper, "I only want to change our lives, sir." But life has a way of twisting fate like a curling leaf in a storm. In her final year, Nara grew close to Bisi, a girl who wasn't known for her good choices. Her eyeliner was too dark, her skirt too short, and her smile too dangerous. "Be careful of that one," the elders would whisper. "She walks the shadow path." Nara heard them, but she ignored their warnings. Bisi had once given her food when she came to school on an empty stomach, and in a world where kindness is rare, loyalty can be blinding. They became inseparable. One day, Nara saw Bisi wearing a gold bracelet, real gold, not the cheap brass that turned wrists green. Nara's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" she asked. Bisi leaned in, her breath heavy with pepper soup. "From a man, a generous man." "What does he want in return?" Bisi smirked. "Nothing I can't give." Nara didn't ask more, but something heavy settled in her chest. She was still the top of her class, still her mother's joy, but that bracelet stayed in her mind like a bad dream. One fateful afternoon, Nara met Dare, a palm wine tapper with strong arms and smooth lies. He offered her fresh coconut, water, and jokes that made her laugh. His charm was like honey, sweet but sticky. He gifted her earrings. "For your pretty ears," he said. Days turned into nights. One evening, under the mango tree where fireflies danced and secrets slept, they crossed a line. It felt like love. It felt like escape. It felt like trouble. Weeks later, Nara's world crumbled. She was pregnant. She ran to Dare Hope dancing, in her tear-filled eyes. But Dare stepped back. "That's not mine," he said. "I don't plant where others have harvested." His words slapped harder than any cane. Rejected and terrified, Nara said nothing to her parents. They, thinking she was still innocent, sent her to Kura village, a town known for trade skills and distant aunts. A place to grow, they said, but inside her womb, something else was already growing. In Kura, her distant aunt welcomed her warmly, unaware of the storm Nara carried. The village was loud, busy, alive, but Nara's nights were cold. Her fears curled beside her like shadows. Couldn't keep the baby. But abortion was too dangerous now. She had waited too long, so she visited Mama Obi, the midwife. They said Mama Obi had herbs for everything, even shame. "Mama Obi," Nara whispered, "I'm not ready for this. Please, help me." Mama Obi stared into Nara's eyes for a long time, her face unreadable. "It's too late," she said softly. "But there is another way." Nara blinked. "Another way? If you don't want the child," Mama Obi said slowly, "there are families who do. Rich families, foreign families. They'll pay in gold." Nara's breath caught. Gold. She was silent for a long time, and then she nodded, and so began the unraveling. The sun in Kura village was unforgiving. It beat down on the red earth like judgment. But Nara didn't feel the heat. She felt nothing, only the strange stillness that comes after a terrible decision. The deal had been made. Mama Obek, who lived at the edge of the village beside the cursed mango grove, had arranged everything. She knew people, quiet people, who never asked questions, only paid in gold. "They'll come when the child is born," Mama Obi told her. "Feed it, clean it, do not bond with it. That is the rule." Nara nodded like a doll being wound up, but that night, when the village settled into sleep and the crickets began their chorus, Nara lay awake. Her hands rested on her belly. It moved now. The child, her child, kicked gently, like a soft whisper against the womb. She turned to face the wall. She would not love it. She would not name it. It was just business. Still, the nights were the hardest. In the market during the day, She could hide behind noise and coins and friendly chatter, but alone, the silence echoed with her guilt. 9 months passed like a cruel whisper. Then the baby came, a girl, pink and perfect. Her cry was strong, too strong, like she was protesting the fate awaiting her. Nara held her, only briefly. She didn't cry, her heart didn't swell. She refused to let it. When Mama Obi reached for the child, Nara handed her over like a borrowed item being returned. 2 hours later, a man in a black car with tinted windows came to the back of the compound. He didn't speak. He handed Mama Obi a heavy brown pouch, nodded once, and drove away into the dust. Nara sat on the wooden floor of Mama Obi's hut, staring at the pouch. When she opened it, her eyes widened. Gold coins, real ones, and jewelry, emeralds, sapphires, rubies, the kind you only saw in magazines. It was more money than her family had seen in a lifetime. And with that, the spell was cast. A different kind of child had been born, not the one she delivered, but a darker thing inside her, greed. Weeks passed. Nara was no longer poor. She wore fine ankara. Her hair was done with imported thread. She walked like someone who owned secrets. And she had a new plan. She would do it again, the next time. It was with a boy named Tayu, traveler who passed through Kura selling herbs and love. When Nara told him she was pregnant, he backed away as expected. I have never even touched you, Tayu lied. Nara didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled. It's okay, she said. I don't need your help. Mama Ob sighed when she saw Nara again. You've come back too soon. Nara laughed. I've come back rich, and I want to be richer. This road, Mama Obi warned, has no map. Once you're too far in, even your shadow may not recognize you. Nara shrugged. Then I'll walk without a shadow. And she did. The baby came. A boy this time. He didn't cry much. Almost like he knew he wouldn't be staying. He was taken within the hour. This time, the buyer doubled the price. Gold, jewelry, even a box of foreign perfumes. Nara danced in her room that night, alone. Happy. The people in Kura began to notice her wealth. They asked questions, but Nara smiled and said she had a sponsor abroad, that her business was booming. No one knew the truth, not yet, but things were shifting. Mama Obi, who had kept her silence all this time, began to worry. There were whispers from faraway towns of girls disappearing, of child thefts, of secrets catching fire, and Nara was getting bolder. She began choosing men on purpose. Ones who would never stay, ones who would never question. Each pregnancy brought more wealth. Baby, buyer gold. Repeat. But no one can outrun a storm forever. One day, as she stood in the market admiring herself in a mirror, a stranger brushed past her. He was tall, wearing a long black coat that didn't match the heat. He paused and looked her dead in the eye. Do you know what happens to women who trade their blood for gold? He asked. Nara froze. I don't know what you mean. She estimim. Ared. The man smiled, not kindly. Good, but you will. And then he walked away, vanishing into the crowd like a ghost. That night, she went to Mama Obi again. Do people know? She asked. Mama Obi sat by the fire, her old hands grinding leaves. Not yet, but spirits always reveal what humans hide. Spirits, yes, Mama Ob said, eyes glowing in the firelight. The ones who were sold, the ones who didn't choose to leave. They speak. In dreams, in cries, in shadows. Nara tried to laugh, but her throat tightened. I'm not scared, she said finally. But that night, she dreamed of a little girl in a white cloth. She stood in a burning field, her eyes bleeding tears. She pointed at Nara and said, just one word, Mama. Nara woke up screaming. She looked around her gold-filled room, her hands shaking. She wasn't alone. And something had just begun. Part 3, the third. Bargain blood beneath the silver. The rain didn't stop for 3 days after. Naria's second child was taken. Each morning, she sat by the window of her lavish stone mansion, watching the skies weep as if nature itself mourned the loss of her son. Servants brought her steaming cups of herbal tea, warm towels, and sweetmeats from the city, but the taste of everything turned to ash on her tongue. In the market square, whispers had begun. Not loud enough to stir the elders, but slippery enough to slither from ear to ear. People noticed things, how Naria's belly would swell, then flatten, how no baby cried in her home, yet her gold never ran out, how her eyes, once warm like honey, had turned glassy and hollow. Her mother, Mama Alani, came to visit. a woman with deep lines of wisdom carved across her face, and a Bible always in her bag. Naria, she said softly, I had a dream of crying children, calling for a mother who never answers. Tell me, child, what are you doing? Naria forced a smile, one she had perfected over the months. It's just business, Mama. I invest, I save, I buy from the city, and sell here. That's all. Mama Alani didn't believe a word, but she prayed in her heart and left in silence. That night, Naria lit every candle in the house. The man with the voice of shadows would come again. She knew it, and he did. He came, not in the flicker of the flame, but from the silence between her breaths. The room turned cold. The time has come again, he whispered. You are with child Naria. She trembled. I can't do this again. You signed 3 children, 3 flames, 1 remains. But it's twins, she blurted, eyes wide. There are 2. I heard the doctor say it last week. You can't take both? The shadow paused, amused. Then give me one. Choose. A scream rose in her throat but never left her mouth. Choose between 2 unborn souls. If you do not choose, I will choose. And when I choose, I take what is dearest. Morning came with blood. The sheets were soaked. The servants shouted, and a doctor from the capital was rushed in. Only 1 twin survived. They called him Azino, the one who remained. He was pale. He didn't cry. He simply stared, as though his infant eyes already knew too much. Naria became obsessed. She wouldn't let the child out of her sight. He slept beside her, his tiny hands curled like vines, always reaching for her skin. But he never smiled. He never cooed. He never even blinked when the thunderstorms roared. And, worst of all, every night, he pointed at the ceiling and whispered something no one could understand. Until one day, Naria listened closely. Azino, only 3 years old, whispered, He comes for you now, Mama. The last gold will turn to ash. By the time Azino turned 5, the house had become a tomb of shadows. The walls, once golden and warm, seemed to sweat with cold moisture. The chandeliers swung even when the air was still. Mirrors cracked without touch. The maids whispered prayers under their breath as they worked, and more than one servant mysteriously quit, refusing to step into the boy's room after sunset. But Naria, she couldn't leave him. Not for a moment. He's all I have, she would say over and over, like a mantra. He's all I have left. She brushed his thick curls daily, dressed him in silk, fed him with her hands. But every night, she saw something in his eyes she couldn't explain. Azino didn't blink, he didn't play, and he often stood for hours staring into corners, muttering. At first, Naria thought he was imagining things as children do, but one day, she followed his gaze to the far corner of the nursery, and what she saw made her heart seize. A hand, not attached to any body, just a shadow of a hand, stretched long and crooked, with fingers that scraped the wall like they were made of bone. Azino turned to her, and smiled for the first time in his life. That one's not yours, he whispered. She ran. She picked him up and fled to the town priest, an old man named Father Uzo, who had once tried to warn her mother long ago. He welcomed them with shaking hands and eyes full of dread. Child, why do you bring him here? The priest asked softly. Naria clutched Azino tighter. Please, bless him, cast it out. Whatever it is, take it away. Father Uzo looked into Azino's face and fell silent. Then he turned slowly to Naria and said, You didn't sell your children, Naria. You sold your womb. The contract was not for 3 babies. It was for every child you would ever bear. Naria's legs gave way. She fell to her knees, the weight of the truth pressing her soul to the cold ground. He's not your son, Father Uzo continued. He's their collector. That night, Naria dreamed of her first 2 children. They stood in a field of ash, barefoot, holding hands. One had no eyes. The other had no mouth. When she tried to run to them, Azino stepped between, holding a scale, one side dripping with blood, the other with gold coins that screamed when they clinked together. She woke to find Azino sitting on her chest, watching her. His tiny voice spoke calmly. Mama, I don't like the priest. The next day, Father Uzo was found dead, drowned in holy water, though no one knew how. His face frozen in terror, hands twisted backward, and Naria, she began to wither. Her once youthful skin turned gray. Her hair fell out in clumps. Her voice cracked with dryness, even after water. And through it all, Azino grew stronger, taller, his eyes darker. At 7, he could speak fluent Latin. At 8, He asked for books on old rituals, in tongues she never taught him. At 9, he no longer slept, and then one morning, he simply looked at her and said, "You are no longer required." Naria didn't remember how long she ran that night through rain, through the thickets behind the estate, through streets that changed direction each time she looked back. The only thing that didn't change was the shadow following her, always behind, never running, but always there. She reached the old village shrine where the deal had first been made. Everything was overgrown, broken, the roof caved in, the altar drowned in moss, but she dropped to her knees, digging through the mud with her bare hands, screaming prayers to a God she didn't know if she believed in. "Take the gold back. Take my name. Take everything, just let me live." But the wind didn't blow. The silence didn't move, and the gold still clung to her fingers like a disease. Then she heard a voice behind her. "He offered you eternity, and you gave him children." She turned, the stranger from the dream, now fully visible. His face was ancient, but young, 1,000 years trapped behind one smile. "What do you want from me?" she screamed. He didn't reply. He held up a scroll gold-lined crimson, and opened it with a breath. On it was her name, written not once, but thrice, each written in a different blood, each tied to a child. "One is gone, one is the vessel. The third you must choose." Suddenly, she saw visions of her daughter Adina, now 14, alive and hidden in a school far away, placed there by Naria's old nanny for safety. She had the same fire in her eyes Naria once had, and Azino now possessed by the entity. His body was only a shell, but a part of her son still existed, trapped, crying, begging. "If you want to break the curse," the stranger said, "you must sacrifice one to free the other. Choose, Naria, gold or blood. You cannot have both." Naria screamed in agony. "Take me instead." "You are already taken," he replied. "Your soul was the first deposit. Now, the interest is due." The ground cracked beneath her. Fire licked her heels. Azino appeared again, smiling, and for 1 second, just one, she saw her real son, behind the eyes. "Mama, help me." Then the eyes turned black again. She made her choice. She ran, straight to the school, straight to Adina. But the shadow followed, Azino followed. The contract was not yet fulfilled. Naria burst into the gates of the boarding school, her body covered in mud, her eyes red with horror and tears. The security guards tried to stop her, but one look at her face, and they stepped back. "I need Adina, my daughter. Please, where is she?" The headmistress, confused and concerned, ushered her in. Within moments, Adina appeared in the hallway, her little hands clutching a book, her eyes wide with confusion. "Mama!" And in that instant, Naria froze, because Azino was standing behind her. Not the real Azino, but the creature wearing her son's skin, a twisted version, tall and cold, black smoke curling from his fingertips, his eyes glowing dimly. "You came to trade," the creature hissed. Azino picked up the coin. Suddenly, he was back, not in his home, but in the clearing where it all began, where Naria had once buried the gold, where the tree had first withered. The altar stood again, fresh with blood, and across it the creature waited, cloaked in smoke, voice dripping with honey. "A new deal, child," it purred, "one life for another." Azino stepped forward. "No, not a deal." He raised the coin. A curse returned, and with a cry, he shattered it against the stone. The scream that followed tore through the skies. The altar crumbled. The creature twisted in agony, and from within the storm, a light broke through. Naria, but not in shadow, in purity. Smiling, "I'm free," she whispered. "And so are you." She touched Azino's forehead and vanished. Years passed. Azino became a quiet man. Adina grew strong, wise, and warm-hearted, never forgetting what their mother had given. They never saw the creature again, but sometimes, late at night, Azino would walk to the tree, now fully grown, with golden blossoms, thought he would sit under its shade, and say, "She was cursed, but she fought back, and she loved us, even in her worst ending." The legacy of the gold-blooded woman in a dusty village that once whispered of the woman who sold her children for gold. They now told a different story, of a mother who died to save them, of a boy who broke a curse, of a girl who never gave up, and of a tree that blooms only when a soul chooses love over power. And beneath it, a stone reads, "Here lies Naria, once lost, now redeemed."